evening all. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm guessing most of you know who I am and are sick of seeing my face, as I am of seeing it. So I just want to welcome you all this evening and thank you so much for coming. Unfortunately, I have to start with some bad news and inform you that as a consequence of Israel and the US launching their illegal war against Iran, my dear friend Inat will not be joining us this evening. But we hold her, the Iranian people, and all those suffering senseless violence in our minds and hearts. However, it is my absolute privilege to be able to introduce my dear friend, UN formally recognised and multiple award-winning human rights defender Issa Amro to the platform. You might well recognise Issa from Louis Theroux's documentary of last year on the subject of settlers. Issa and I first connected in 2015 through a Jewish American activist so our group could support the annual Open Shuhada Street campaign, which shines a spotlight on a street which was once a bustling life vein of business and community activity in the old city of Hebron or Al-Khalil. Shuhada Street was closed and designated a sterile zone following the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre of 1994, carried out by Barak Goldstein, a settler from Brooklyn, who had taken up residence in the illegal settlement of Kiryat Arba and had gunned down and killed 29 Palestinians, including 7 children, as they were praying, and injuring over 100 more. It was a campaign to try to reopen the street and local businesses, which remain closed to this day. Issa and I first met in person in 2016 when I visited the occupied Palestinian territories and volunteered for Youth Against Settlements. But we became firm friends when I served in the old city of Hebron as a Human Rights Monitor, or EA, with EAPPI in 2018. Issa has continued to be a source of inspiration for me as he continues his non-violent resistance against the Israeli occupation, apartheid, and now genocide, displaying that famous quality in Palestine of sumud, or steadfastness. Because like the ancient olive trees that grow in abundance there, they are deeply rooted in their historical homeland. It was also an incredible privilege for me to have Issa as one of my character witnesses in my recent trial for recognising occupied Palestinians' rights as enshrined and within the parameters of international law, remembering that we too were once occupied. And for that, I shall forever be indebted. He holds a special place in my heart, and I hope after this evening, he and the cause of his people might find a place in yours. So without further ado, I shall step aside for Issa Amro. Please welcome him all.
Thank you, Natalie. She's the hero of Jersey. So the women in Hebron, when I told them that I'm coming here, they gave me a special gift for her. Wow. It's the Palestinian kufiya with a flag. It's made by women in Hebron. So the kufiya is made in Hebron, and the flag was made by Palestinian women to tell Natalie, thank you very much for everything you do for Palestine. I'm from Hebron. I like my city, it's my hometown. I know that you all like Jersey, and you like your hometown. I came here really to thank you in behalf of my people for what you do for Palestine. I'm an activist since 23 years. Many Palestinians didn't feel the importance of your work before October 7th. After October 7th, we saw how you did great work to expose the genocide, expose the apartheid, to expose all types of racism. with your support, we are able to stay and remain strong and firm in the land. We are the land defenders, and you are our narrative defender and tellers. The first racist, fascist Israeli leaders had a very famous saying that the elders will die and the young generation will forget. Nobody forgot, and we all stay together to make free Palestine possible and to make the occupation more costly for the occupiers, for the supporter of the occupiers, and for who is justifying apartheid, genocide, and all forms of racism. I want to thank you deep from my heart and from the people of Hebron for what you do for Palestinians. You are in the right side of history. Usually people think, they end their speech with thanking people. But mainly I came here to tell you thank you. Then we can talk about what's going on and about what I do to make the occupation costly. Two main important things: to stay in the land, and we, in the last 2 years, we know what it means to stay in the land. Because they announced their plans. The plans are not new. The plans were started 48. The plans were started 67 and continued to remove Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza and to have Israel from the river to the sea. This is the plan. October 7th made them announce their plans, made Israeli officials to announce their plans. People in Gaza stayed in their homes. They were killed for staying in their homes. Now in the West Bank, last week, 5 Palestinians were killed by Israeli settlers for staying in their homes. And I, as Issa, was described as the Palestinian Gandhi. No, it's the Palestinian women who decided to stay and remain in their homes in spite of the settlers' violence and terror, in spite of the Israeli government aggression. They are the Gandhis. Because the decision for a family to stay and remain in the land, it's the women's decision. Men, they always follow the women inside the house. I hope that they follow them everywhere, but this is how the Palestinian, the Palestinian family structure. Palestinian farmers, they fight to go to their land. They are heroes. They are Gandhis. This is non-violence resistance. Palestinian teachers who fight to go to schools to teach the student without salaries, because Israel is stealing our taxation. They steal the taxation, and the teachers are without salaries. They are heroes too. Palestinian journalists who were killed in Gaza, around 250 journalists were killed. One of them was one of my best friends, and she was killed at the middle of the war. And I was telling her, escape, Wafa. She said, how to escape? It's my obligation to fight the occupation by my camera. So the journalists, they became a target of the Israeli occupation in Gaza and in the West Bank. So they are all heroes. Teachers, lawyers, workers who wake up at 4 a.m. to go to their jobs, to avoid the checkpoints or to pass the checkpoints. They are all heroes. So it's not only Issa. But Issa speaks English and he's well connected. That's all. But our community is full of Palestinians who are fighting by existence is resistance. This is what we do now. We want to stay in the land. We want to stay in the communities, but not silent. To speak, to document, to be active against occupiers and against their supporters. Nowadays, it's harder. We are talking about Hebronization from the river to the sea. You know what is Hebronization? Hebron, who was in Hebron before? So I encourage you to come soon to understand what's going on. Hebron, as you see in the map, is considered as the microcosm of the Israeli occupation. That was before October 7th. What it means, microcosm of the Israeli occupation? 28 checkpoints in less than 1 kilometer square. So I passed 2 checkpoints to reach my house. This is what Natalie was doing to accompany the kids to go to their schools, to feel safe in front of armed soldiers and armed fascist settlers. 100 movement barriers, street closed, 1,800 shops closed, 1,000 apartments became empty. They changed the names of the streets from Palestinian Arabic names to Israeli Hebrew names. Not only that, it became high-tech lab. What is high-tech lab? High technology with surveillance, with camera facial recognition, and the systems as Blue Wolf and Red Wolf. Blue Wolf, it's an app profiling Palestinians, and they know everything about you from far with face recognition connected to their mobiles. Red Wolf, it's connected to the computers. White Wolf, it's connected to the settler systems. You can, Amnesty published a report 2023 about it. They call it apartheid technology of apartheid. So you can follow that. And this is Hebrew. This used to be before October 7th. After October 7th, I'm a human rights defender. I'm known to Netanyahu. Okay? I'm very famous in Israel. All Israeli leaders know me. Okay? The soldiers in Hebron on October 7th, 2023, the first thing they did in Hebron was to come to my house and kidnap me. Kidnap a human rights defender. I'm not supporting any type or form of violence. Why to kidnap the most famous Palestinian human rights defender? Because of my voice. Because they don't want me to speak to Americans, to Europeans, to British people about the Israeli apartheid, the Israeli genocide. So they want us to be voiceless as Palestinians. They wanted to hide our voice. Then I was expelled and evicted from my house by the Israeli military. When I came back after 2 weeks, the army commander told me, Issa, don't leave the house. I'm not leaving the house, you know. I was not allowed to leave the house. It was curfew. But don't do Zoom too. Because I was in the BBC talking all the time live about how is life in Hebron. So the army spokesperson was talking about how nice is the Israeli occupation. And how I was talking about apartheid, segregation, separation, reality, truth, first-hand testimony. So they don't want that. So one of the things you should do to raise Palestinian voices, because they want to shut up our voices. So after October 7th, this man was taking all over West Bank. Now in West Bank we have more than 1,000 movement barriers. So we go between checkpoints. When the war on Iran started, they closed all checkpoints in the West Bank. And that was the case since October 7th. 1,000 gates. They treat us as human animals. They said it. They are all human animals. They said it to me as well. Today, the Israeli military police dropped the charges of the Israeli soldiers who raped Palestinian prisoners on camera. And the Israeli prosecution general, the military prosecution, was arrested and outlawed for showing the video, for publishing the video of soldiers raping Palestinian prisoners. Only Palestinian prisoners were raped. I was sexually assaulted on October 7. Not only me. The majority of Palestinian detainees, male and female, the majority of them were sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, sexually, suffered from. They do it in purpose. In Hebron, at the checkpoints, Haaretz documented soldiers harassing teenagers, Palestinian girls who are 16, 17, 15 years old. It became a phenomenon. That's from October 7th till now. No fuel, no gas, no enough water. Why? They want to make the life of the Palestinians harder and harder to force us to leave. Now, UK and many other countries, they don't want refugees to come here. But they are silent about the countries who are forcing other people to leave. And they not only they are silent, they are selling more weapons to these countries to kill humans and civilians in the Middle East and in Africa, so people scared to come to UK. So if you are against refugees, change their conditions in their hometown and don't sell weapons to oppressors. And this is what is going on with Palestinians. Now, you want to force the Palestinians to leave by 5 main things. First, you don't feel safe in your house. I don't feel safe in my house. No services, ambulance, maintenance, medical aid, enough food. You don't have it. No social life. We are isolated. We are separated. The checkpoints are always closed. In my house, I have no more visitors from outside the area. Only the people who are living in Tel Rumeda, in this area, are allowed to get in from the checkpoints. Only international and Israelis are allowed to come. Palestinians are not allowed. So my brothers, my sisters, my friends are not allowed. So no security, no social life, no services, and no privacy. You don't feel private in your bedroom. Palestinian women tell me, Issa, do the soldiers see us in our bedrooms? I say directly no, but I'm lying. I say no to them to make them feel good. I know that the Israeli surveillance, the cameras where they install at the checkpoints, on the streets, on Palestinian buildings, is watching everything. The drones is watching everything. One time the soldiers knocked the door, my door, and told me, Issa, you are eating hummus now. I went out to talk to the soldier. They saw from the drone that I'm eating hummus that morning. I don't care, I know, I don't feel private, no privacy at all. They're using us as simulation objects for their technologies. You know what simulation objects? They test their technology on us before they sell it to the British government in a few years. So the technology they test in Hebron, it will come to you soon. It will come to you soon. And this technology will observe only you, not everybody in the community. Because in Hebron, the facial recognition systems, it's about the Palestinians who are under the Israeli military law. The Israeli settlers who are under the Israeli civilian law, the cameras don't see them. Doesn't recognize them. So when we say it's apartheid, it's apartheid. Because I am under the Israeli military law. My neighbor settlers, they are under the Israeli civilian law. What is that? It's apartheid. It's the literal definition of apartheid. In spite of all of that, people are remaining, people are fighting, People are organizing themselves. To be very honest, I don't know how my community managed to survive the genocide. To be very honest, I'm very proud of them. How come they didn't give up and leave or stop dreaming of freedom or equality or accountability? All of that happening to us, but we are remaining, we are staying, and we are not at all giving up. And we are optimistic about that. The change is coming. Are we closer to end the occupation, or are we far from ending the occupation? We are much, much, much closer to end the Israeli occupation. How come? The Israeli Prime Minister is accused of genocide and wanted by the ICC. You think that's small? Imagine that in Israel, the only Western country leader, except Russia, is wanted to the ICC. Why is wanted to the ICC? It's because of you. Because of your hard work. So, Israeli leaders, not only Netanyahu, I know many, many others. I'm one of the people who is a witness in the ICC. We have many other complaints against Israeli leaders, especially settlement leaders. There is a huge case in the ICC, and many, many settlers leaders are wanted by the ICC for their war crimes and for their genocide and for building illegal settlements. So we are almost there. And something else very important. We are winning the public. We are winning the majority of the people everywhere. And it's unreversible. The victimhood of the Israeli occupation disappeared. They are not the victims anymore. We are the victims. So the occupation is in its hardest time. The soldiers in Hebron covered their faces. When the BBC documentary was shown, the soldiers came to my house to revenge from me for being in that film, The Settlers. So the soldier told me, Issa, you film us and you send it to the BBC. I told him, why are you afraid? Do you believe in what are you doing? He said, no. They're afraid. They are always with face masks. I told them, you represent the army. You don't represent yourself. You should not be afraid. I'm not covering my face. I'm here talking, proud of how we as Palestinians stay, remaining strong and firm against Israeli fascism and Israeli apartheid. So what we do? We have better community now, stronger community in Hebron. We distribute food packages, we do legal work, we do counter surveillance, we do protection of the houses, of the windows, of the doors. We do a lot of activities for the kids, with the women, with the kindergarten. So we are going on, we didn't stop. And something else, the majority of Palestinians are doing documentation of Israeli human rights violations and Israeli apartheid. What do you see on the videos now? It used to be since very long time. 48, Israel destroyed more than 300 Palestinian villages completely, and around 200 partially. They did more destruction in the past. Settler violence existed since very long time. Apartheid is not new. Inequality is not new. What is new is you. The narrative. You are speaking about what's going on. You are raising your voices. And you are in the right side of history, on the right time, on the right place. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm very happy to be with you. Thanks to Natalie and thanks to all the organizers who invited me and invested a lot of their time and their money to support Palestinian cause, to support Palestinian non-violence resistance, and to support Palestinian grassroots movement to stay, to remain, and to make the occupation costly. If you have any questions, not comments, I'm ready to answer. Ask any question you want.
Yeah, can I ask about your
So,
here?
can I just,
Are there other colours?
sorry Nick, can I just ask, we've got two roaming microphones, we're going to use those if that's okay.
Okay, yeah. It's just to ask about the colour of the scarves, because I do see other colours such as red, but what's the significance? Is it different tribes and groups and...
The Palestinian kufiya is usually white and black.
Okay.
Okay? If you want to talk about Middle East, red is the Jordanian. But in Palestine, we have different factions with different colors of kufiyas. But this is the Palestinian kufiya. Okay? This is the Palestinian main color. The other colors is about, other Palestinian factions. But mainly, if you talk about Middle East, this is Palestine and the red is Jordan.
So would it be wrong to wear a red one?
You can wear any kufiya you want. Any color.
Whatever goes with your outfit.
Right.
I've enjoyed your speech and thank you very much for coming over. I hope that the people of Palestine realise, and many of us have been with you for years and years. What we'd like to know is, can you ever see the Zionists giving up any land that they've stolen from the Palestinians? Can you see Netanyahu ever take a sit, and his and the people he's with? Can you ever see them giving up land, giving into Iraq without using the nukes? And how does that going to end up?
Yes, for sure. If we work harder and we continue the same level of momentum, did you expect to have 1 million protesters in London? Millions of protesters in Spain? Everybody in Italy went down to the streets. I was in Padova. They told me nobody stayed in the houses. This is new. This never been like that before. And they are the young generation. The students in Columbia University shaped the system there. More Americans support Palestinians now than they support Israelis. This is not me. It's the statistics. This is why now they are trying to speed up, to use Trump's time, to get as much as possible. But our movement is moral, our movement is in the right side, and for sure, we will never lose. The people don't lose. And something else very important. Sometimes we feel that we are minority. What? How come minority? You know all about French Revolution. French Revolution changed the world, not only France. What was the percentage of the French who participated in the French Revolution? Less than 10%. We need 10% of British people to make a revolution here. Is it doable? Yes, we are on the right side. We are in the right time, and we are in the right path. Here, in the UK, in Europe, in the US, in Canada, everywhere. The UK had to recognize Palestine as a state. It's a big move. It's against the government. Well, they did it because of you, not because they are nice. Or they believe in us. They believe in you. Keep doing what are you doing with the same momentum, and never lose hope. And everything you do is meaningful. Everything you do gives us energy and power to stay and remain, and is hard time for them. Make it costly for them. And level up Palestinian education, level up Palestinian economy, level up Palestinian voices, level up Palestinian sports. Palestinians should be treated as a nation. This is how we should do it.
We've got elections coming up on the 7th of June, our local parliamentary elections. And we know there will be Zionists standing, people who support the Zionist cause. Sometimes they won't tell us that. Some of them we know. How should we deal with them? How should we respond to them? What do you think we should do?
Anybody justified the genocide and killing children and women in Gaza should not be elected. That's the punishment for them. You can't be a leader of your community and in the same time you support genocide, or you support apartheid, or you are silent about genocide and apartheid. This is something very important. Each politician in this country or in any other country should announce his position about international law. Either they support international law, which means that the Israeli Prime Minister should not be able to come to UK and should be arrested here, and any other Israeli leaders, or they are part of the problem. So they have to choose. They are part of the problem or part of the solution. And you have many good candidates. You should support them, be with them, and work hard to make them win. So we punish the oppressors and we motivate the defenders. This is how we can make a change. Unfortunately, the pro-Israel lobbies here support many candidates with money, with votes, and with media. Now we have the majority of the votes. So let's choose good people, good leaders from our community who are part of the movement, the moral movement, to make our future better for everybody. Our future is not only better for the Muslims or the Christians or the Jews. It should be a future of diversity, because diversity is a strength. It's not a weakness.
Could I add that? So go. Please clap. I just wanted to comment on that too, if I might. When we're looking at candidates about their support of international law, when I was serving in Palestine, part of my role was to take delegations of cross-party MPs through the sterile zone. And one of them that I spoke to was a Tory MP, which I didn't hold against her, Caroline Spellman. And I said this to her, I said, you might not care about the Palestinians. You should do, because they're your human family, but you might not. But what you need to understand is that if we allow international law to become irrelevant, it endangers us, because the chickens will always come home to roost. And is that not what we are seeing right at this moment? And this is what we need to understand. When we support the Palestinians, when we support the strengthening and the implementation of international law, we are supporting and protecting ourselves. And if you look at what's happening in America with the complete destruction of human civil rights, if you look at what's happening in the UK, you have 3,000 old, blind and disabled people that have been arrested under counter-terrorism legislation for holding a piece of paper. Is that what terrorism is? And let's look here in Jersey. What was I arrested for? Was anybody safer for my trial? Did anybody feel less safe for me being arrested? For me going through the trauma that I personally went through? So this is really important for people to understand. for selfish reasons, we must call for leaders who support international law, because what starts there ends here. I was very lucky that I had a good team, and obviously I'm very well known for 10 years. I mean, I've been aspiring pacifist. When people ask me what does aspiring pacifist means, I've been asked this a lot. What it means is that I'm committed to non-violence resistance. I always have been. Having said that, I also think it's not for me to judge people suffering the very worst of colonialism, imperialism, of genocide, to determine how they, within the parameters of international law, choose to resist. And that's why, so if people are confused about that, my commitment is always to non-violent resistance, because I believe that violence creates more violence. That's my position. So I just wanted to establish that. But, obviously I was acquitted. But if you read the ruling of my acquittal, it was basically telling people to be careful. They said that although they recognised there was no intent, that some of my things could possibly have been construed as inviting support for, which shows how laws can be weaponised, because you can only construe it as that if you were determined to construe it as that, because my position has been abundantly clear. So I think it's really important that people understand, again, we hold our political representatives to account, that we do not vote for those who do not support international law, and we make them pin their flag to the mast on that subject. Because again, it endangers all of us, and that is what we need to understand. And I say that as an islander, committed to the rights of everybody. And it's really important because lots of people weaponise anti-Semitism. Actually, if we want to protect the Jewish community, which is so important, has suffered for so many centuries, we do it by creating diverse societies where everybody feels safe, but everybody's rights are protected, and not one at the exclusion of another.
At your trial, which lasted several days, there was only one state member present, as far as I know, and that was your best friend. For the others, who might have been sympathetic, in fact, you were an embarrassment. And some of them might have come afterwards and said, "Oh, well done," but they weren't there when you were in jeopardy, when it could have gone the other way. And if it had gone the other way, they would have disowned you, that's for sure. That's the solidarity you get from states members.
Is there a sense you feel in your community in Hebron that the awful strikes on Iran, the US and Israel are outstretching themselves, imperial overstretching, that might hasten the collapse both of the US and Israel, but also of the narrative that you were speaking about? Is there a sense that this can help?
Unfortunately, the Israeli occupation is using the war, and that the attention is somewhere else to steal more land. Last week, 5 Palestinians were killed by Israeli soldiers to squeeze the Palestinians more and more, with less gas, with less fuel, with less food. They want to use the war in Iran to complete the job. That Israel will be from the river to the sea with a minimum number of Palestinians. Since the war, Al-Aqsa Mosque is closed. No worshippers are there. No Palestinian Muslim worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque. Since the war in Iran, the Ibrahimi Mosque is closed. The majority of the checkpoints in the West Bank are closed. And even, the anti-missiles systems work in the West Bank, not in Israel. So the rockets will come down on us as Palestinians. We don't sleep because of the bombs on the sky and some, damaged parts of the rockets fall down on Palestinians. And we are without shelters. We are without shelters. I am with the people of Iran. I want them to have democracy, but Israeli apartheid system can't give the Iranians, freedom. They should first make Palestinians free before they think and cry about the Iranians. And Trump is not a peacemaker. He's the war maker. He's not an idol of a hero or a leader. He's an idol of the fascism and the idol of inequality and everything bad. I don't know how come Americans voted for him, but he was lying a lot, and he was supported by the establishment and by many bad, financial supporters. So fascism is making everybody not safe. And unfortunately, the first target was a school in Iran with around 150 students. And with their AI, very smart rockets and missiles, for sure they don't miss their targets. Who killed 70,000 Palestinian civilians? The majority of them are children and women in Gaza. And 1,000 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank. They don't care about the Iranians. They care about China, US war, about the oil, about who controls the markets. So this war is not our war. It's their war. And we hope that we all work to stop it. And I hope that you here shout loud, not to allow your government to be part of this war.
More questions?
Hi. Am I a bad person for feeling good when I see missiles come down on Israel?
It's up to you how to feel. I'm against violence and I'm against wars, and I pray for all civilians everywhere. But Israel started the war, and we should all work to make the Israeli government stop thinking that by power they can expand their territories or they can get what they want. We should all think that international law should be the reference for any conflict in the Middle East or anywhere in the world. And starting this kind of wars from Russia to Ukraine, that one country raids another country to gain some territory or to steal the natural resources, and then with Iran to be attacked that way, we are going back to the same roots which made the Second World War happen. So they are taking us to come back to the time that each country think that they have power to use that military power to occupy other countries. That's the end of the globe, unfortunately.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum يا صديقي.
Yes, وعليكم السلام.
كيف حالك؟ بخير؟
بخير.
مرحبا بك في جيرسي وإنجلترا.
أهلا فيك.
لمن هو ليخيك وقع فيها. I just want to ask you a question about the number of deaths in the Gaza Strip. Francesca Albanese reckons it is about between 250,000 and 300,000 and not 70,000.
Everything Francesca says is right. Francesca Albanese,
she's very beautiful.
She is, but she's married, so don't look at her. And, when you count the Palestinians who passed away by missiles, 70-something thousand. But the siege, the lack of food, the lack of medication, the heart attacks, she's right. It's much, much more than that. And who will die in the future? So it's really disaster what happened in Gaza. The people who believe in climate change, and in protecting the nature, Israel damaged the nature in Gaza, and the climate change will be affected because of the number of missiles which was dropped on Palestinian civilians in Palestinian land. So yes, Francesca doesn't speak, without reference. She's an amazing lawyer. She knows what she's talking about, and she knows her argument. So she's right.
شكرا جزيلا يا سيدي شكرا.
Question for you, sir. With the genocide happening in Gaza, the attacks in Iraq, and now bombing Lebanon and taking more land in Lebanon, do you think that the Israeli government, united with the US, is getting closer to the greater Israel goal? Are they working? Are they accelerating that process now, do you feel? Or
No.
do you think there's enough resistance on the ground in countries, there's enough strength there to stop that?
They failed in Gaza. The main purpose was to evict the Gazans to Egypt. The Gazans stayed and remained in their homes. You know why? Why people refuse to leave? Okay, I tell you my part. So on October 7th, I was kidnapped, tortured, sexually assaulted by Israeli soldiers for 12 hours. So the midday of October 7th to the midnight, I disappeared. I was under their mercy. They were rejoicing, torturing me. Imagine that October 7th is agony, and soldiers torturing me in Hebron. So I was telling the soldiers, what are you doing here? Go to Gaza. And they were doing it with music, with loud music. So after few days, so I was released, I went home, I had no food, it was very hard days for me. Curfew, not allowed to leave the house. Not only me, everybody in my community suffered the same way. 2 army commanders, 2 a.m., knocked the door. I was alone in the house. Issa, mashdumcha. I told them, Biseder, how are you? Biseder, I don't feel well. He told me, Issa, we came to advise you to leave your house for a few days till the war ends. I told him, yes, it's a great idea. I have many Israeli friends. I'm happy to go to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem. You can book a hotel for me in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. They said, no. Go to H1, to Hebron 1, to other part of the city. Stay there. No. I stay here. Or you take me to Jerusalem. So I said, so you don't want, your life is in danger, we don't know what the soldiers, how they behave, the settlers, they may kill you. But no, the soldiers are around, they should protect me, not kill me. I'm a human rights defender, I'm not your target. So they started leaving because I refused. So one of them was Duruz. Told me, Issa, why you refused? I told him, you should know why. Why? In 48, they told our grandfathers, leave your communities, your houses for a few days. The few days are till now, few days. So we remember 48. This is why the Palestinians refused to leave their homes. Because they know in 48, they were advised, they were asked to leave their homes for a few days, and they became refugees forever. I don't want to be a refugee again. This is what I told them. I don't want to be a refugee as my grandfathers did. So we don't do the mistake 2 times.
It's very easy to feel completely helpless over in this side of the world. And thank you for your thanks, but I feel like it's never enough. We can never do enough. And so I wanted to know, obviously you have information and you can see that there are people in this side of the world that are doing everything we can. But do the communities see it? Do they get access? I mean, I'm in contact with some, obviously, that managed to contact people. But how are the communities? Are they actually seeing the protests? Are they seeing that there's a big movement, and how is that? Is it helping?
Yes, before October 7th, people didn't believe much in the international solidarity. Now the women, the children in the streets, they stop me and tell me, Issa, thanks to your people, they're doing great work. You know, they see, all the time they see, they watch, they follow TikTok, social media, Instagram, the media, the mainstream media. Did you ever expect that BBC would publish a documentary about settlements in the way the film The Settlers was? It's new that the mainstream media wanted to be a little bit proportional to what's going on the ground. In spite that, it's not enough. And I tell them all the time, I keep telling them, it's not enough. It's not proportional to what's going on the ground. And the Israeli military, they are not a spokesperson of the Palestinians. Sometimes the Israeli military said, they caught the army and the government. And the army talking about Palestinians, and the government, the Israeli government, talking about the Israeli narrative. This is how they do it, because for them, we live in the occupied territories. But to be very honest, the majority of Palestinians, they follow. They were very happy with Dennis, the Irish actress who came to Hebron and talked about Hebron. And everybody was sending it to me. Issa, look, she visited Hebron. She's talking about how the occupation is bad in Hebron. So people are really follow your activism. And thanks to social media, it's not enough because social media algorithm is a little bit restricted, but we always find our way to reach information and to reach your great work. People ask me about Natalie's trial because, I talked about it and it was in social media, it was in the media, so people talk a lot. And I told you, thank you in behalf of my people. It means not only me who follow your activism, your great work. Many, many people back home, they follow your work, they follow your support, your activism here, and thank you for that. Thank you very much. And it's, why it's not enough, you feel? Because when you eat something very delicious, you never feel full up. Or when you eat a lot of sweets, and it's very delicious, the Palestinian kinafe, you want more. And what are you doing is really great, so you feel it's not enough, you want to do more. This is why. Because to be in the right side of history in the right time is not easy. I know it's not easy, it's very hard. To be a defender is not easy. Because people either they are defenders or don't care at all and not mention, or offenders. And you chose the right side. Okay? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Issa. This might be quite an equated question, but it would be good to have an understanding of how what we call as a regular life differs to someone who's actually a Palestinian, yet even a child who's has lived under an occupied land in an apartheid state. So, could you talk us through, perhaps a Palestinian child going to go to school every day, what life is like for them?
Children usually don't like to go to schools. But our children, they fight at the checkpoints to reach schools. The same with the teachers. So a typical day for me, I wake up in the morning, I check if the checkpoint is open or closed. This is our life. If you leave the house, to be very honest, each time I leave my house, I lock it as if it's the last time to lock it. I feel that I may not be able to come back to my house, either to be killed in the street or that the area will be closed. The same for Palestinian children. I have a child who's 14 years old. It's not easy for the children to live this life. And they can't disconnect themselves from what's going around them. Army raid is every night. Secular violence is almost every night. So you don't feel safe as a child. You don't feel that You can plan your day, your week, your month. I just, I thought that I may not come here. I don't know how I managed to come. To be very honest, we don't plan. It's the same for children. Children in H2 in Hebron were arrested for playing in the street. So I went to the soldier and told them, what are you doing? You're arresting children for playing in the street. They said, they are not allowed to play in the street. What they are allowed to do? A child, I was detained last week. I was with university students, 2 girls, doing their architecture engineering project. I was showing them around. They were terrified to death from the soldiers who were pointing the guns at us. They were lucky that I was with them to speak to the soldiers in a way to calm down. And a child, when I was detained with the soldiers, a child who was 4 years old, told the soldier shalom. The soldier told him, Lach al-bayt, go home. I told the soldier, what are you doing? You're complaining about our curriculum, that it's teaching our children violence. This is the violence. It's not the curriculum, it's you. If the child tells you shalom, say shalom back. He says, no. I told him, what no? You say it because you're afraid. Not because you're a strong soldier. A child is telling you shalom, you tell him go home. This is how they treat our children. So our children, they don't have a real childhood. I'm talking about Hebron. I'm not talking about children in Gaza don't have food for dinner, or they don't have school, or they don't have toys, or they don't have clean water, or they don't have a house. They are with the tents, very cold in winter and very hot in summer, with flies. So really, it's really hard what the children are facing now in Palestine. But they will grow up and become very strong Palestinians who will never give up their rights and give up their dreams. They will stay in the land. They will not leave it. They will stay more in the land. And I hope that we manage to help them to stay in the land together. That we work together. And I hope that you all come and visit. It's not hard, by the way. Come and visit and show solidarity and support grassroots projects there, so Palestinians will remain and stay in their communities.
Hi. On the back of what you just said, can you recommend any good grassroots organisations that you encourage people to follow and to help?
Yes, be in touch with me after the lecture and I can recommend according to your skills, or according to what you want to do.
Any final questions for anybody?
Okay. I'm interested in the third joy of the gentleman behind me who seemed to get something out of Israel, getting a taste of their own medicine. Natalie is quite right of pacifist philosophy. So I suppose the question is, from my civilian standpoint, what is the most effective way for me to make Israel's occupation costly beyond just boycotting Israel products? And
What is your job? What do you do?
I work in construction.
Construction?
Yeah.
Okay. My philosophy in making the occupation costly, I do it in 2 ways. First, level up Palestinians. Education, sports, engineers, so you level up Palestinians. This is in one hand. The second hand, make fighting the occupation part of your daily routine. Okay? They build settlements, and you are a builder, you work in construction. Think about how I can make Israeli settlements costly from construction side. I'm electrical engineer. I can help you. But from your own expertise, as an engineer, as a lawyer, as a sport person, choose your targets. And be creative how to make it. And be, long-term planner. Okay? Israel would not be able to maintain its occupation, apartheid, and illegal settlement for that long without a lot of support coming from Jersey, from London, from Europe, and from the United States. And think what you can do to make that not possible.
Thank you.
Can I just answer something on that? When people ask about that question, it's really important for us again to hold our politicians to account, because if we think about when Putin invaded Ukraine, how long did it take the sanctions to be applied? I think it was 2 weeks. We've been witnessing war crime after war crime long before the genocide in Gaza, without anything happening. So in terms of what can we do in Jersey, we demand that our politicians not allow money that comes from illegal settlements to be held within our island, that does not money that comes from military companies that are profiting from the destruction of communities, from the destruction of people's bodies, of children. This is what we do. This is the pressure we have. We forget sometimes. Jersey is a financial centre, but nobody wants to acknowledge the dirty money that we hold within this island. And it's not okay for us to build our wealth in the island on the backs of broken bodies, minds, communities, and a broken planet. So I think we all need to be honest and recognise that. It doesn't mean we can't have a financial centre here, but we need to start demanding that it be much more ethical than it is, and not just in terms of Israel, in terms of the UAE, in terms of Saudi Arabia, in terms of any state that is predicated on the destruction of their own community and the communities that they occupy.
I'm a lawyer and I do employment law. I currently represent a Portuguese lady who was a carer for a very wealthy family in the north of this island, a parish called Trinity. And the property has sea views of France and a very large grounds. And this carer looked after that lady very well. The family are Jewish. And when they sacked this lady, they dismissed her because she wasn't prepared to work 22 hours per day. And they considered that to be acceptable. And now we're in a big fight in the Petty Debts Court and also in the Employment Tribunal. And the son of the mother is giving evidence through a screen because he's in a place, in a bunker, in Israel. And that's where he lives, and that's where he does business from. And he's taken it upon himself to attack me because he knows my views and he knows my thoughts about Palestine, because he's read them on where I've expressed myself, and he's mentioned it. And now it's war between him and I'm fighting back, and I'm going to beat him.
You will.
Just say something. It's really important that when we speak about, I understand why the relevance of mentioning that they were Jewish, but I just want to really highlight to people how important it is to make the distinction between the Jewish community and Israel.
Well,
I understand why reference, yeah, but also the distinction between being a Zionist, which you don't have to be Jewish to be, even Biden announced that, and being Jewish, because we're not going to fight for a kinder world by making that conflation, which you can see in America, the right wing are jumping on. So it's really important that we protect our Jewish community, and we really, really recognise the issue
is not whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, or indeed whether you're Muslim, Christian, or any other faith that you might, label yourself as. It's about political ideologies. Judaism is a faith of thousands of years, and some of our greatest supporters and allies are Jewish. The issue is Zionism, that is only a little over a century old, and it's really important we remember that.
A quick one, as you're on the ground in the West Bank. What I'm reading is that over 90% of Israelis are behind what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank and what's happening in Iran. How do you feel as a Palestinian amongst Israelis? Do you think that the majority of Israeli citizens are behind their government, committing all the atrocities that is being, to the actual people, to the soldiers, to the normal man in the street, Israeli? Are they behind their government, or are they appalled at what's happening in Gaza? Are they appalled at what's happening in the West Bank? Are they appalled at what's happening in Israel? What I'm reading is 90% of them are behind the President Netanyahu.
It's not 90%. They say that it's around 80%. 80%. I don't believe in the polls because there is a censorship in Israel about media and about anything related to the war on Gaza or related on the war on Iran or on the Palestinians. So they want the public opinion to be seen as if they are supporting the genocide and supporting the occupation and supporting the government. I don't see that. I see that Netanyahu government was described as a fascist government before October 7th by half of the Israelis. Yair Golan, who is the head of labor now, said in 2016, we see fascism among us, and it reminds me of the 30s and the 40s. So they try now to censor everything. Even the hostages who were released from Gaza, they were not allowed to talk to media because the censorship. Now they don't let anybody in the West Bank, any Palestinians, writes anything about the war against the occupation is arrested. So there is a lot of censorship, a lot of restrictions on what we say or what we do. I'm able to come here and talk because of my public support. Otherwise, I would not be able to come back to Palestine. So this is something very important, that Palestinians pay a very high price for speaking against the occupation. I see many Jews all over the world supporting Palestinian cause now, much more than before. I meet a lot of groups who come to Palestine, especially to Hebron. They are disconnecting themselves from occupation, from genocide, and from the current Israeli government. So we usually should, as Natalie said, distinguish between a Jewish person, who we are very proud of all of them, all the Jews should be safe with us, and between an Israeli who's hiding in a bunker in Gaza, maybe killing civilians.
Tel Aviv.
No, not Tel Aviv. I think it's in Gaza somewhere, killing civilians. And they are violating the Israeli law and the international law and our morals and principles. First of everything, that they are really violating the principles of being a human being. I'm not talking about laws. Something else very important. Human beings are more important than states. States are founded to protect the human beings, not the opposite. So this is how I see it. And unfortunately, the Israeli public, especially teenagers, they support Netanyahu, that they support Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich. Yeah, and it's fascism. This is what many Israelis described in the past. But I believe in change. I believe that if the international law is implemented on the fascist leaders in Israel, many Israelis will change their opinion. If they are punished for what they do, many Israelis will change their opinion. Now you see a lot of them talking about it because the impunity. During the day they are soldiers in West Bank or Gaza, and at the weekends they come to London as tourists, or they go to anywhere else. When they are punished for their human rights violations and international law violations, a lot will change. So let's help them change too.
One final question, if anybody wants to ask.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I know this is a very hard question to ask right now in terms of being able to see any kind of solution or end with the craziness and insanity of leadership, but I just wonder if we could imagine a time in the future and we've knocked down the walls and we're trying to have a new world that we've all envisioned together with people power and what that might look like. What would you imagine that it would be like? Could you imagine a two-state solution? Could you imagine something where this thing would ever be possible? Does it sound, I know now maybe it sounds crazy, but that's how things do change, and a vision for a different way of going is the only way that things ever do change. So do you have any thoughts about what a future could look like and how that could be possible?
I like to imagine a lot. So I like imagination. I imagine that we all here will be united and we establish a global movement against Israeli apartheid, Israeli fascism, and Israeli occupation and illegal settlements. The time we have that united, again I say, united global movement to make occupiers pay the price, then I will think about, imagining what is the solution. The solution is easy, that equality is the key for any conflict. Unfortunately, they don't see us as equal human beings. So we want them first to recognize us as equal human beings and recognize Palestinians as a nation who deserve freedom, justice, and equality. Then we will find a way to live together with full equality as human beings.
Thank you so much, Issa, for coming, for sharing the stories of your people, hopefully for inspiring us. I said at the beginning that I hoped from coming tonight that the people of Palestine and Issa's story might find a place in your heart, and I hope that that has been the case in listening to this. I wanted to kind of respond to what you brought up, Becky, just around the two-state solution. I think what we need to understand, and from listening to people, we've had a number of speakers come over the years, is whether you have a two-state, a one-state, a 10-state, no state can be predicated on ethnic supremacy of any group. And this is when people say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, many people will say it means something it doesn't, the eradication of the Jews, and that actually isn't the case if you listen to Palestinians. What they're saying is wherever Palestinians reside, whether they're the 48ers, the 67ers, wherever they are,
that they have the same right to freedom, justice, equality, and a life of dignity of any other group within those regions. So I think it's really important we understand that we cannot have any number of states where one is predicated on ethnic supremacy. So I think I just wanted to kind of sort of add that little bit there. So thank you again for coming this evening. Obviously we always have our talks free because we want as many people to come as possible, but that doesn't mean that they happen without cost. So for those of you who might like to contribute, we do have buckets there and at the back, and we've also got a QR code for Revolut if you want to donate that way just to cover our costs for this evening. If any of you are interested in finding out more about what we do, there's a little book at the back and you can write your details and we can always get in touch with you. I try to promise to send emails, I can't always promise to do that, but obviously we have a Facebook page, Jersey Palestine Solidarity Campaign. We have an Instagram account at Jersey PSC, and you can always follow me and see what I'm doing because I'm always putting stuff up there as well. You might not want to see it, but just in case. We will be organising other events throughout the year, and we held a vigil every other week. I think the next one will be next Saturday, just in the Royal Square, and people are just welcome to come and join it. Sometimes we have bigger groups, sometimes we have small, but we think it's really important to continue to have a presence and continue to sow those seeds. What I've also put at the back is some little cardboard labels. And what I've brought them for is if any of you want to write a message that you would like Issa to take back to his community, maybe some thoughts and encouragement that you would like to do, please write on those little cardboard cards. You will also see that there's some Palestinian dates, please help yourself. There is also some Palestine Coke and some other drinks, one because we wanted to remind people that they shouldn't be drinking Coca-Cola, and there are other options. You can now order Palestine Cola in the UK, which is incredible. What I do ask is if you do take a can, if you wouldn't mind making a little donation just to cover the cost of the drinks themselves. But oh yeah, sorry, and actually a group of us, a collective of us, this isn't exclusive to the Palestine group, are organising a walk for peace on Friday the 17th of April. We're going to be meeting at 5:45 p.m. at the gardens just behind the St Bellows Parish Hall in St Albans, so just next to the little den for those of you who know what that is. There won't be flags, please don't be bringing flags with you. The idea is it's a walk for peace for all humans, you know, because we are living in very turbulent times. I'm sure many of you feel like I do at the moment. It's really struggling to understand where we've got to in the world, and we never seem to learn the lessons of history. But it does come down to all of us adding our little bit. So we're going to be walking from St Albans to La Frigate, bring flowers because we're going to be offering those up to the sea. All people of all faiths or none are welcome, and the idea is that we want to offer up our own prayers or thoughts or hopes to the sea, and we're going to have some speeches, and then we're going to have a guided meditation. So we hope it's going to be a really beautiful, nourishing evening, and just holding that vision. And I always think to myself that everything that comes into being good and bad starts with an idea. We need to start having better ideas, and that starts with us imagining that a kinder world is possible. But that's not enough. It's then a responsibility for each and every one of us with every action and choice we make to ensure that we add our little bit, that little drop, until we achieve building a world in which we can all thrive in, where everybody's rights are respected. So thank you so much again for coming this evening. It's been a pleasure.